I'm delighted to be joined now by former Dublin Gaelic footballer and Electric Ireland Sigerson Cup winner with DCU DÉ and Jonny Cooper as he looks ahead to Wednesday's Electric Ireland Sigerson Cup final between UL and UCC. This year, through its hashtag First Class Rivals campaign, Electric Ireland celebrated the unexpected alliances formed between county rivals as they came together in pursuit of some of the most coveted titles across Camogie and GAA. Jonny, welcome to the show. Who did you play with over the years in your Sigerson Cup days? Any rivals while you were playing with Dublin and you were fighting up against some of the big teams? Did you have any of your rivals that were playing with you in college?
Yeah, we had a couple, albeit maybe not direct. Robbie Henley obviously was there. David Kelly, Michael Murphy, Aidan Welch, a raft of obviously internal from a Dublin point of view. Anyone that we come up against, probably a few of the Tyrone lads, Matty Donnelly and so on, up in UEJ for a few years there. So plenty of good battles up in the north and various other counties, which is very memorable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, who did you find the most talented player that you ever shared a dressing room with at Sigerson level?
It's a good question, because DCU in those days you had so many people through the doors for various reasons. I think David Kelly certainly was up there. His approach, his attitude, his discipline, quite obviously his skill set and his on-pitch performances. But I got to know David post, kind of college life and stayed in touch since. So probably David Kelly, albeit I'm sure there's plenty of other guys that are in contention there as well.
And was it very difficult to be able to fully immerse yourself in Sigerson when you were also double jobbing with Dublin at the time? Because you probably have to train with Dublin, but you also want to get in with the Sigerson team.
Yeah, to a certain extent. It was only a small enough window, maybe kind of for 4 or 6 weeks. I don't know if that's different now in terms of this day and age, but certainly it was really enjoyable. You end up playing a Saturday and a Wednesday, or Sunday and Wednesday, but you're quite honest, as a kind of 20-year-old, whatever, just kind of take it in your stride. Of course you can get injured, and that's the unfortunate thing, but at the same time I think the perspectives of people, diverse thinkers and so on, were very, very welcomed. And when I now reflect back on that, getting to meet many people from outside the M50 certainly stood to me.
And now that you've departed the Dublin setup, has life changed much for you? Because I'm sure it kind of defined your identity to some degree for some of the years you were involved with the team.
You have a bit more time. I think that's the first thing you kind of feel the weight of. You have some extra time that you didn't have a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. But that has kind of been put into a bit in Na Fianna, and then organisationally, professionally, I'm involved in a busy job, working with teams and leaders and leadership teams and high potentials and so on. So possibly a bit more time to invest into that space, and that's sort of very exciting for me in that. And it's obviously a choice, but the last number of years you probably just don't have some of that space to plow into and invest into. But to be honest, looking up over the last few years, I've been educated, tried to educate myself and kind of get around to different places, more or less to kind of set me up for life after sport.
And do you feel that you had a good work-life balance? Because you often hear of so many players who would say that they probably don't, and that ESRI report saying people are putting in up to 40 hours a week into it.
I think at times certainly we all have tipped it in a negative way, but at the same time, my own personal experience and personal journey is whatever I put in, be it hours or physical or training or mental, whatever it might have been, I've gotten it back, if I'm being honest, Shane, 1,000 times over. So in the moment possibly there's a bit of pressure, and at times that's not healthy, obviously, but in the long run, you're in this and the sun is shining on you for a certain period of time, and when it's gone and when it's down, it's gone. So I really enjoyed being able to kind of maximize it at times. There was certainly late nights and early mornings, but as I said, just trying to kind of glean as much as you could for the period of time, knowing that it doesn't, and it can be taken away in a short period. Everyone doesn't go out on their own terms either. So realize that and try just to invest in myself and try and just turn that into that time into something that was always going to be beneficial in the long run.
For some people, it's very difficult to leave the WhatsApp group when you walk away from the panel. Is that something that bothered you, or do you remember doing it?
Yeah, no, definitely do. Look, it's part of it. Obviously, I don't know what it would be like in 10 years. Do you leave the Snapchat group or whatever it might be at that particular stage? No, it is. But look, it's my friendships and deep kind of care and connection with the guys will hopefully anyway well outlast wearing a blue jersey or wearing any type of jersey for that matter. So certainly it's different, and certainly it's not something you used to do in January, quite obviously, but at the same time the right call and the right decision for me and the team.
And where do you see things going now with your clubman Dessie Farrell still over the team? And of course he's after getting Pat Gilroy back in, Jack McCaffrey, Paul Mannion, and Con O'Callaghan is back fit as well. So it feels like everything should be moving in the right direction this year.
Yeah, and no doubt, as we're talking right now, there's lads in the shadows doing, bits of training or conversing or challenging or, setting up training, whatever it might be. So that's the enjoyable piece. And look, having minds like Pat and Jack and Paul, as you mentioned, so on, back in the mix and back into the ingredients can only bode well. But at the same time, look, they're all well experienced and aware to know that every day there's an opportunity, but every day there's a pitfall. And sometimes, you just have to be extremely vigilant on them things, which I'm sure the leadership group and the leaders on the team have been no doubt trying to steer and hit as many of those opportunities as possible into the summer.
And with Paul and Jack, do you think it's possible that they can get back to their old level? Like, they've been out for a couple of years, but they're still decent ages, late 20s.
Yeah, well, look, they have all the experience, and I suppose in lots of ways, knowing the type of training that works, the type of people that they are in terms of their self-awareness and so on, be a bit later in terms of their playing career can only be an advantage. Can they go back to the same level? It's hard to know without having seen them both. Obviously, Paul played for Kilmacud, but not seen Jack play anything yet in the league. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure they'll be up against it competition-wise. They haven't played, as you said, at that level for a number of years. So there's certainly no guarantees, and nor will anybody be stepping out of their way too easy either to give them any jersey unless it's under severe pressure. So it can only bode well. Will they get back to the level? Who knows? And certainly something looking forward to seeing as well.
Have you ever come across a player as fast as Jack McCaffrey?
As fast as Jack, yeah. No, and for somebody that did so little to work on his speed, he's extremely lucky to have it. But I haven't played with him in a number of years. But yeah, it's incredible, and so it's like it's incredibly useful tool. Obviously, there's lots of fast players, and always will be. But particularly a couple of years ago, there was probably none faster, and having that as a didn't do much defending now, but having that as a go forward option was certainly handy.
What was the main thing that made you decide to walk away from Dublin? Because it felt like you were still like making an impact as a player there, and that Desi probably still would have wanted you around.
I think for me, Shay, like getting so I do this review process every year with a given manager. So this year is no different. You stay on and you have an honest discussion. Where were you in the previous year, 2022? For me, lucky enough, I played and started and contributed as much as I could. But the following and the next year is always, or certainly from my point of view, is always being about trying to add 15% more. Whether that's on the pitch, off the pitch, learning, your influence, your leadership, your role modeling. All things considered, could I get to that 15% more and stand behind it and stand behind that with my full weight? And the honest answer is no. Could have got the last year's standard, possibly could have got a couple of percent more, but the standards that the guys and Dublin and supporters rightly demand is something of elite standards every year, not just in the previous year that's come by. So look, the cold and the clinical, and the short answer for me is I couldn't get to that level, can't get to the level that the lads are at anymore. And as such, it's due, and it's only right you step aside and allow somebody that can get to that level to put in, as I was given the opportunity to there, put in their kind of their value and allow them to take off. And as I said, right for me and right for the team.
Yeah, and like when you talk about some of these things that you can't quite get to the level that is there something physical you're talking about? Is it like, or even in previous years, what would this 15%, what would have comprised?
I think there's a few different angles. There's the physical element, obviously, which is critically and incredibly always has been important in terms of enduring 70+ minute games. But then there's the mental capacity. From a leadership perspective, there's lots that goes into that space that you're looking after your own boat, but at the same time, you have 30 odd other players to kind of keep an eye on as well. That dilutes your own personal performance. Then if you're playing, if you're not playing, how does that impact your leadership? Are you kind of scratching the surface on different global insights that are there culturally from a leadership perspective and that type of space? You need to be investing a couple of hours every given month into kind of getting around different clubs and or certainly I try to anyway, organizations over the years. So it's a number of different layers of mass. There wasn't one. It wasn't the physical was 10%, and it wasn't any of that. It was more just when you put everything into the pot. The Dublin, as I said, the standards demand a certain level, and can you give them? And there's a yes or no answer for me. Although you try to get there and certainly you work your way through and you talk to Desi, you try to set it up in certain ways. You certainly don't want to be the carried or it to be stilted in any other way that the other 30+ players have. Otherwise, it's not, you're doing it a disservice, I think.
Yeah, and When you look at the last maybe 4 or 5 years, a huge amount of experience is left. I don't know, Bernard Brogan, well, so many players as well. He's just to name but one. Has the dressing room changed massively in the last few years, or has the culture still remained as the pieces have changed?
Yeah, well, like the group should, and certainly was for me, always be the biggest teacher. So you can have any one player or anyone, leading a group, or managers, coaches will come and go, all that sort of stuff. The group should be the group should be the biggest teacher in the group. Has it changed? Of course it has, because you've had personalities and dynamics, and you've had experience, as you mentioned, pass out of the group, but equally you've had fresh and different perspectives, different talent, different types, different looks, different backgrounds, different, professions, all that come into the system. So I suppose, yeah, of course it has changed, but, I think the exciting piece is what's going to come in and what is in there. How is that going to be molded this year in 2023 to set it up for success? And then quite obviously trying to, stitch that into the following year and the following years to bring it forward. It's an interesting and fascinating space just when you look at teams and cultures and not just sports, obviously, and how they sustain success or, sometimes fall down and have to catch themselves and propel themselves back to where they came from.
Would you have a particular highlight in terms of your time with Dublin? It doesn't necessarily have to be a game, but just is there anything that stands out on your journey?
Probably the 2019 replay happened to be in close proximity when the final whistle went with Keane O'Sullivan, and the two of us would have had probably an injury journey in the background for a couple of months that year. So having the massive respect for all my former teammates, but Keane being right up there and being close proximity to him, knowing the kind of the lengths that man went to be on the pitch for a couple of minutes, and we just so happened to be beside each other. So that's certainly something that stands out. 99.9% of people probably don't see what goes on behind the scenes, and there's many different stories like that all across the pitch. So for me, that replay, not necessarily for because of the first game, more so because we were in close proximity at that sort of top tip of the mountain at that point, knowing what he went through to get there.
And I suppose from the outside it looks like very serious setup. You all take it so seriously, but I've no doubt that there's great crack in the dressing room as well. You can't be that successful without having a great team spirit. Is there anything you can share from your years in the Dublin dressing room? Any stories?
Any stories? None for this forum, I'm sure, but there's plenty of messers. I remember one year on O'Gara kind of saying in a kind of an analysis meeting that, listen, I wasn't presenting, but somebody else was doing something. We're not all like you. We can't do the PowerPoints, and we're not good at. Everybody's not good at the detail or the analysis or the data. And I think that was about 2016 or 15 or something like that. And from that kind of year and moment onwards, we started then trying to mold people into different places. So be it socially or be it, Owen O'Gara's kind of just say it as it is, kind of brute force, if you like. And equally, that was really, really valuable because some of us, like myself, are a little bit more kind of thoughtful around data and kind of, more journeys and stitching stories together and that type of thing. So nothing per se, but I think over the years that evolved into making sure everybody had different roles, and equally all of those roles were valued in the exact same way, because you're right, kicking the ball over the bar versus, having the crack inside of a dressing room, they're both equally important. One just happens to be in front of the crowd and the other just happens to be in the background, but both, I guess, give you the experience, give the full richness of the experience to make sure your bucket is as full as possible at all times.
Would there be any particularly colourful characters over the years, like your, whatever it was, 12 years or so, been involved in there? Who would be the really colourful characters?
Colourful in what sense? Like rogues or just a bit of crack?
Funny, rogues, up to devilment.
Yeah, Cossy's probably up there. Cormac, he's had his fair share of sort of injury dynamics, but at the same time, he's probably walked himself into a few traps over the years. But Cormac tends to lead the way. Just for the butt of jokes, and he's a great storyteller, and he's great for the team as well as on the pitch, but he's been great for the team over the last number of years. Certainly every team needs a person like that kind of social glue to an extent, and in some ways he's probably not helped himself in that regard, because his playing abilities is there to be seen, but at the same time sometimes the other stuff dilutes that, or certainly has or had over the years.
And then just in terms of Dublin going forward, are there any new players that are on the way through that you would have seen and you think they're going to have a decent career, or just how would you see this season going?
It's hard to know, to be honest. I haven't seen a couple of minutes of the first game against Kildare, and to be honest, I wasn't even watching with that much great intent, so it's hard to call. I know Lee has come through the last number of years, so touch wood that will continue in terms of trajectory. the way in which I view that question is, can somebody do it for 12 years like Mick Fitz or James McCarthy or these types of lads, Stephen Cluxton, and sustain that level, as opposed to who will come in 2023 or maybe be there in 2 years' time? You know, are they willing to put in all that it takes to be there for that 10 or 12 years? And that's something I'm really excited about. No doubt there is. Probably haven't seen enough of them, haven't been much games in 2023 to call that with much conviction. But it'll be interesting. Really looking forward to seeing who's going to come through, and obviously the more experienced guys sort of harnessing that and showing everybody the direction too.
And a very final question, Na Fianna, you got very close last year. You had that great quarter-final win over Whitehall. Then you trounced Ballyboden in the semi-final. Had a good clash with Kilmacud in the final. I presume you're going to be staying on and hoping to drive that extra step.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I've never done a club season in its entirety before, so the last couple of weeks have been really, different for me. I learned a massive amount. You're right, we lost by a point, but like every kind of Dublin campaign, you're back at the bottom of the mountain. My gut on it is, having been with the lads, the 20-odd lads in the club, is that massively talented, but at the same time, I think there's about 30% more capacity and growth there within them that, in 2022 is certainly no marker really for 2023. So looking forward to adding whatever I have in my own head and experience professionally and so on into that mix. And to be honest, just competing for a jersey myself, but possibly, if I could, supporting that bit of a sleeping giant in some ways, the club as a whole, not just football either, hurling, camogie, ladies football and so on. So can we all rise together? And that's something that's really exciting for me, and as I think for the club, my club Na Fianna as well.
Great stuff, Johnny. Well, look, congrats on a great Dublin career, and best of luck with Na Fianna in the future.
Pleasure.
Okay, so that was Jonny Cooper. A reminder, we're brought to you by Our Store, which is the official home of merchandise for OurGame.ie.